What's up? What's up? All right, it is the Thursday night edition, y'all. Forgive me for the lighting. It is not great tonight. I forgot that I needed to have a bit more light than this because I haven't gone live in forever at night. But I am here tonight and I'm ready to talk about grief work and how that helps with healing. When you need to heal the mother wound. So if you have a toxic, narcissistic, or even an absent mother, grief work is a requirement in my program. And so I'm going to talk to you about it. Hi to everyone that's joining. I'm going to talk to you about it. And I'm also going to read a little bit tonight from my book, Unmothered, A Daughter's Guide to Acceptance, Healing, and Renewal. And so just to set the stage of, how I know what I know, all of that. And it's because I've lived it, it's lived experience. And so I'm just coming to you, bringing you something that I hope will help you. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is onjeinikab, also known as the unmothered coach. And I help women who had narcissistic, toxic mothers who are similar to myself. I help them overcome that pain and begin the healing process. I also help them find their self-confidence and achieve their goals. And so that's what I do. I'm happy to do it. And I have this book that I wrote called Unmothered, A Daughter's Guide to Acceptance, Healing, and Renewal. And I wrote the book specifically for women that have had these types of mothers and it has affected them in their adult life and they are ready to heal. So that's who the book is for. So I want to talk about grief tonight because I started a series last week where I talked about acceptance and I gave you 3 steps that will help you if you're ready to begin your healing journey. And so talked about acceptance, and that particular part of acceptance is when it comes to accepting your mother and, recognizing the trauma, understanding, some of her history, how she became who she is, and then understanding that you can't change her. And so you have to accept her as a person. Now, later down the line, after I get through all the different steps of healing, I'm going to break down some of the strategies that you can use to begin, implementing some of the things that I talk about. But right now, I just want to get you through the steps. So last week, we talked about acceptance and the 3 things you need to do in order to achieve that, so that you know who your mother is, you understand that maybe the relationship hasn't been good for you, and now you're ready to do the next level of work. And the next level is grief. And I titled it Grief Work tonight because that's what it is. Where acceptance is a decision that you make. You decide that you're going to believe who she shows you she is. Grief is a process. And so I'm going to read a little bit from my book about grief, and I'm going to read some of the stories so that you can understand. Okay, so let me get to... All right, so I'm going to start with where I introduce grief, which is in the healing section of the book. And so this is part 2 in the book, and it says healing. Healing is a 2-part process, grief and forgiveness. Grief is a normal, natural response to loss, and if we allow it, it can be a catalyst to healing. If the loss is traumatic, then grief can help us air out our emotions that might otherwise get trapped inside. Grief is a process that can be ongoing, and some say it's the price we pay for love. Okay, I'm going to check the volume over here on Instagram. Just to make sure. All right, so I'm not going to go into the second part of what's in the book because it's forgiveness, and we're going to cover forgiveness next week. But I'm just going to talk about grief. So that's what grief is. It's, some people say it's the price that we pay for love, because you have loved somebody, and when you experience a loss, you're going to feel that. But grief is more than just a loss when it comes to relationships and people. Grief can be a loss for anything. You can grieve the loss of anything that you feel like you're missing or lacking or whatever. Like, people sometimes lose jobs and that causes grief. And so there are a lot of different ways that you can apply the grief work that needs to be done. And I'm calling it good grief. And I'm calling it good because it's necessary to move you through the process. It is painful, but it's necessary. All right, so I'm going to read some of my story to you, and just to kind of set the stage. Let me take off my glasses so I can actually see. All right. So, grieving the loss of a mother-daughter relationship. This is chapter 4. A mother is a daughter's best friend, someone said, but they didn't know my mother. If I had the understanding and the chance to properly grieve the fact that there would be no mother-daughter relationship for Puddin and me, Puddin is my mother, I believe I would have been better off. When she ultimately lost her battle with cancer, I may not have stayed in the grieving process for so long and so deep, spinning my wheels like I would never get out. I didn't get to that point of recognizing that we didn't have a relationship soon enough. I had not taken any time to accept the loss of all that I thought we were going to be to each other. Remember, I had still been in denial, and I had not come to terms with being unmothered. When I finally decided enough was enough and I needed to separate from my mother, I was an adult. 4 years had gone by since I graduated college. I was 26 now and a newlywed. She was in my wedding and had found a beautiful dress befitting the mother of the bride. Some remarked that she looked almost like a bride herself. She was proud of herself and of the accomplishment in nailing the look. Unfortunately, she did not keep her promises. So I'm going to skip down to another part. So my mother made some promises concerning the wedding. It wasn't really about paying, more about just with my brother who was in the wedding. And so I'm just going to skip over some of that, and I'm going to go to this next part. So the honeymoon was magical. We ended up celebrating along with another couple and friends of ours who had gotten married just a week after us and were going to be in the same spot for their honeymoon. My husband was in their wedding. To make everything work out, we waited to open our wedding gifts and cards until we were back at home and settled. It was about 2 weeks after our nuptials, and we started opening all the cards and gifts from everyone. It was so sweet. Family was so kind. I noted as I opened all the cards, the pile kept going down lower and lower, and I kept looking for some small gift, some note, some words of encouragement, something from my mother. She had been at the wedding, so I thought maybe she got busy and forgot to send us something. I checked the mail thinking, please let it be in there, but nope, nothing. I don't know if my husband thought anything of it or not, but I was embarrassed and so hurt at what she had done. I kept thinking, what mother does their child like this? And that was the last straw. That did it. This was a woman known for her beautiful writing and a way with words. I loved to see anything she had penned, and I loved reading her poetry. She had not taken time to give me, her oldest daughter, even a card. I was beyond through with her. I stopped talking to her. I talked to Mama is my grandmother, at least every Sunday, and I told her how I felt about my mother. I ranted and went in. Mama was patient, and she listened to my woes, but then she said, well, wait a minute. She's not that bad. And I said, yes, she is. Name one good thing she has done, just one. She had you, Mama said. Checkmate. I knew she was right. I blinked and tears rolled down my face. Yeah, I said, but I didn't ask to come here. So that's an excerpt from the chapter on grief that I open up with. And there are 3 chapters in this book dealing with grief. And so I want to talk about it tonight because grief is hard work. But I think if you can get your mind ready and get in the headspace that you need to do it, you will see that it's beneficial. And so I talked about acceptance being a decision and grief being a process. And so grief has many phases to it. And so sometimes people go through all those phases. And, there can be denial and shock. And sometimes you're angry about that thing. Like I was clearly angry at my mother for the way she had treated me. And, not giving a gift, not showing support. I felt of my wedding, just wanting to be in it. And so, that's how it felt to me because she didn't say, anything other than that. And so there can be anger. But there's also a time when you will accept whatever the loss is. That is a part of grief too. And it has its own type of acceptance. And then sometimes there's depression. Now, if you are in the depression phase of grief, it is normal, but it's not normal to stay in that phase longer than 2 weeks. So be mindful of that. And so it's its own process. But once you work through the different phases, you'll begin to get into the final stages of grief where you are progressing and, you have hope. And that is what I want to give you tonight. So you have to process the loss. And what it takes to do that is allowing yourself to grieve, really. That's what it is. And so you can choose to do a lot of things, but grief, you will have to allow. You will have to allow yourself to work through it. And so you might have trouble, when you are trying to accept who your mother is, and you might go back and forth. But once you begin to grieve, it is something that you need to allow until you get to the final stages of it, because that is what's going to bring you out. And so the first thing you need to do when you know that you're ready to grieve is just to think about what things will help move you through. And so this is what I call just normal grief. Crying, a lot of tears. You may have to take walks. You may have to spend time alone. Those are normal things. Some people, they may not eat for like a short period of time. But if any of those things are ongoing or lasting, then you know that there's a problem and you've gone into an abnormal form of grief. But understand that grief is natural. And so if you need to cry, if you need to scream, if you need to do something, if you need to state how you feel, you need to do that. And if your mother is still here, definitely, if you want to talk to her, you can do that, but it's something you have to think about. So how are you going to process it is a big part of grief. Having those outlets available to you, not holding it in. That is not processing grief. Holding it in will cause trouble down the road. Holding it in will keep you in denial and make you think that you can fix her or you can change her, and because you haven't accepted it. And so you'll keep going around and you'll have those same expectations and you'll get hurt. So you have to begin to process the grief. Decide how you're going to do that. And then decide what you need to grieve. Now this is why the book is broken down into 3 chapters. Because I talk about grieving the loss of the mother-daughter relationship. And I read it to you. I thought that my mother and I were going to be some type of duo, we were going to be amazing friends, and none of that happened. And it didn't happen because of her, because of how she was feeling, because of how she had grown up, how she had lived. And so the relationship I wanted could not occur because of where she was. I kept trying, but I couldn't make it happen on my own. And so that was the first thing that I needed to grieve, and I didn't grieve it, and it caused double grief when she died, because I had to then grieve the fact that I had never had that relationship and I wasn't ever going to have it. And then I had to grieve the fact that now my mother is not here on earth and there's no chance of fixing it. And so to you daughters out there, I say definitely, if you can get into the headspace of the relationship is not going to happen. If you can talk to yourself and coach yourself and say, okay, this is probably not going to turn out how I wanted it to. We're not going to be close. We're not going to have our shopping days. We're not calling each other on the phone every day because, me and this woman, we are not getting along. She doesn't know how to talk to me. She doesn't know how to treat me. If you can get yourself in a headspace, then you can begin to recognize the relationship for where it is and stop putting other expectations on it so that you know what you're dealing with. And it is going to hurt. It is going to hurt. I don't know that there's anything that hurts like rejection from your own mother. I don't know if there's any pain like that. Really. I mean, I've had relationships and I am currently married. I love my husband. But I don't know if there is any pain like the rejection from your own mother. And that's whether she's there and she's awful or she's not there and she's choosing something else. It is hard. And so you need to allow yourself time. Okay? And so then the next thing you need to understand is that you might have to grieve her loss. And that could be even if you go no contact, which I did. I read to you that I was 26 when I decided I couldn't take anymore. And I went no contact with her. And so for me, it didn't last very long, because shortly after going no contact, she got the diagnosis that she had breast cancer, and it was very aggressive. And so that changed everything. But if you're no contact with your mother and you're holding that boundary, and that's what you need, that too can cause grief. It can cause grief almost like when your mother is gone from this earth. Almost. It can cause that level of grief because you can't talk to her because it's painful. She doesn't know how to act. She doesn't know how to be a mother. It's difficult because you are not seeing her. And although she can be annoying and get on your last nerve and really make you angry and hurt you sometimes, there is a different emotion when you're not seeing her. So although it will be beneficial for you if you are a person that needs to go no contact, when you first make that decision, it is a transition. And that's what causes grief. And so if you got to, like I said, scream, cry, shout, whatever, punch the punching bag, whatever it is, you have to let it out. Okay? And so then the next thing you need to do is decide if you're going to get help while you're going through the grieving process. Sometimes you don't need help, to do it. You can do it on your own. You might want to grieve in private, whatever it takes until you can, get yourself back to your normal level or close to it. But for some of us, we need community, or we need a therapist. We need someone that can understand the true depths of that pain. That it isn't just the fact that, I can't, be chummy with her and we're not going to be friends. It's how she treated me. It's that she forced this on me. This is not what I wanted. This is not what I would ever choose. It's that she did this, and this is what I'm left to deal with, and I have to pick up the pieces of my life. And so people don't understand that sometimes. But so you have to have somebody that's in your corner and that can let you voice that, and that can understand that, along with you and support you. And that may take therapy, community, or friends, family that do understand, not those that are going to take your mother's side or be in her corner or tell you, oh, just talk to her, oh, just forgive her. Because we are going to talk about forgiveness, and forgiveness doesn't just happen just like that. It is a decision that you make, but it doesn't happen, at the snap of fingers. It takes you going through the steps so that you can manage it if you decide to forgive. Because that is a personal decision and nobody can tell you what to do. Okay, but we're going to talk about forgiveness next week. All right, and so the other thing I want to impress upon you is, do not be ashamed of your grief. This is the catalyst to your healing. And although it does not feel good, none of it feels good. And grief is some of the grittiest work. It is a catalyst to your healing. And don't be ashamed of it. You are a human being. You are a human being. You have feelings. And so no matter how hard you want to be about it, or no matter how hard she acts, because my mother was like, you ain't talking to me, I don't care. I don't care if you're not speaking to me. And so some of them can be very cruel and cold, or you say one thing and they cut you off, and they're not talking to you. They're the ones that went no contact. So there's all manner of things that these mamas out here are doing, but you are still human. So don't allow her behavior to make you bitter, because that's how she got like she is. That bitterness is what you see coming out, what she's throwing at you, what she's doing to you. So don't allow yourself to become bitter. You can cry for her, even though she doesn't deserve it. I know she doesn't deserve it in your eyes for what she did, but you can cry because you are a human being, and processing emotions is what we need to do. Because when you don't process them and you try to bottle them up, or you try to wrap them up in vengeance, or in I'm going to show you, or I hope this happens. When you try to do all of that, it only hurts you more. It only hurts you more. And again, we'll talk about that more next week. So don't hide away your feelings, and don't be ashamed that you had to break down, you had to cry, you had to take time, you had to walk away. Don't be ashamed that you had to process this very deep hurt that is like no other. Okay? And just, I think the last thing I would say is understand that grief is good for you. And so whether you are at the point where you have to deal with the mother-daughter relationship loss, or whether you thought your mother was going to be all these amazing things, because I did, and I talk about this in the book, she had all this potential. that was gone, and that was upsetting to me, and I had to grieve that loss. And then, like I said, the final one where she's physically gone, either through death or no contact. When you think about those things and you understand, that you need to allow yourself to process it, then you can see how grief might be good for you. And so I'm not trying to make a mockery of your pain, but it's good for you because that is the only way to get through, is to feel it and to allow it and to take the time that's needed. Everybody is different and they're going to process differently. Again, if you're stuck in the grieving phase and, like I said, depression occurs and it's longer than 2 weeks, you definitely need to reach out to your primary physician, to a doctor, to somebody, to a therapist for some help to help you get through it. But if it's the normal stuff, allow it. And understand that grief can go on for a long time. For many people, there is no end point to grief. You will think about it and it will hurt you because you have loved and you have lost. Okay? So just allow it. It's okay. It's okay. As you process and as you heal, things will begin to get better and it won't always hurt as much. And, like I'm at a point now where I am healed. I am healed from that particular loss of the relationship. Sometimes it hurts that my mother isn't here and, we didn't get to do all the things. And, I get teary-eyed, but it's not the same level of pain when I was in the thick of it. This is growth. This is what healing does for you. Where I can look back at times where, before I realized there were problems and think fondly, of certain small times, that were okay, or things that I wanted for her and smile about that, or things that she was good at and talk about that. So it's not all pain once you begin to move through the process. Okay? So that's what I have for you. Understand that you are human and that you need to grieve. Grief is a process, but it can be so good for you when it comes to healing. It can help you deal with those losses and move through the emotions that you need to, so that you can free up your heart. Your heart will start to heal, and then your brain will come back online. And when you get your brain functioning back, when you get your thoughts clear, because you've done that healing work, that grief work, then you can get ready to move into the next phase of healing, which is forgiveness. And that is a doozy. And so don't get mad when I say forgiveness. I know forgiveness is like a trigger word to a lot of people because they're thinking, she doesn't deserve anything, let alone forgiveness. But forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person, it's for you. And there is a such thing as forgiving yourself. So there's a lot to unpack with forgiveness. And so we're going to talk about that next week. All right. So that's what I have for you tonight. I'm glad that I can hang out with you this Thursday. I have my son is having a guitar concert and I would like to be there tomorrow. So I am doing this live early. So that's why I came on here tonight. But I hope that this is something that can help you if you are dealing with a narcissistic or toxic mother, even an absent mother. You have a mother wound of some sort. I have a whole process here for you. It is in this book and it is laid out on the page. I do posts. I go live. There's all kinds of content here for you. If you need more than that, I do have a digital course and it's going to open back up next month. So in April, I will make sure you guys have the information for that. And if you don't like a community type, group type of working situation, then one-to-one coaching is still open. And all you need to do is just go to the link in my bio and you can schedule some time with me. Consultations are free. I will listen and I'll see if I can help you. Okay, so that's what I have for you tonight, guys. Allow the grief. You're human. There's nothing wrong. Don't be ashamed of it. Allow it. You will be better for it in the end. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you guys have a good Thursday night and a wonderful Friday.